Hi, good evening. My name is Jay Rothman, and welcome to Real People, Real Health. It is Friday evening in the United States, coming up on about 8:30 on the East Coast, and I am excited to have a special guest coming in from real close. She's my neighbor. She actually lives in North Scottsdale, Arizona. Her name is Carrie Crary. Welcome to the studio, Carrie.
Thank you. Gosh, I can't believe that we've been living here right near each other. You've been visiting with my friends from all over the world, and we didn't even realize that we were right here next to each other. So it's fantastic.
So it was just a couple of weeks ago that you and I met. Actually, we're introduced by Kate Malvin, who was been on a guest on my show three prior times. And she said, I've got somebody that I need to introduce you to. And it was within a matter of a day or two that we connected, and we had a beautiful conversation, and here we are tonight.
Yeah.
And so what I'd like to do is just take a moment here to share this out to some different groups that I am part of right here. While I'm doing that, what I'd like to do is ask you to perhaps maybe share a little bit about, you just got back, it wasn't too long ago, you were actually in Cancun filming a reality show called 8 Days.
Right.
Before we get into your story, I'd like to invite you to share a little bit about why you got invited to that show and what that experience was like for you. And then we're going to go back into your story and how you ended up there in the first place.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of like giving the punchline before the joke, but
okay.
then
we could start
ending. No, it's fine. But I went down for care at the clinic Hope for Cancer in Mexico, and as you're gonna hear in my story, just had miraculous results, and just fell in love with the clinic. Knew God's presence was there, knew everything about the clinic, and all of their motivations come from love. And I just every experience I kept running into with them, it was just so pure and true. And it's hard to find in healthcare. It's hard to find, biblically based places, or places that are really guided by God and doing what they do for the love of each other. So, so they personally invited me. I think it was not only that I had such great results, and they knew we have the real loving relationship, but also I'm a nurse. I'm pretty well educated in Western medicine. I'm pretty well versed when it comes to speaking medical, and it's just a great way to integrate two knowledges together, everything I've learned through them, and just kind of show what we're missing in Western medicine, what we're missing in our world of healthcare here, what we're not taught, what's not even brought to us in school. And, and I think they saw some of my videos, they saw some of my educational attempts that I was putting out there, to try to start helping and educating other people to help them find the same success. And so they knew my heart was there with them, and right for, have the right reasons. And they saw something in me, and I can't tell you how much that means to me. So, yeah. So they invited me to 8 days.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, so they invited me to 8 days. The producer reached out to me. That was another thing. I was able to really start to get to know the producer before going, which was I haven't been in show business before, but I know that's not a very common thing to happen. And the producer spent time trying to get to know all of us ahead of time. And I developed a real trusting relationship with him as well. Really could feel his heart and his spirit behind the project. So I knew I was going to be in safe hands. And I knew I was going there with a very important purpose. And I knew it was my calling and my purpose that was being fulfilled through that show as well. Yeah.
I would like to, you to just be aware. I want to take a moment here just to acknowledge and thank those from your community and my community from Facebook. Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining and supporting the conversation that Carrie and I are going to deep dive into. Marcy Jimenez is in the house. She is watching
Woohoo!
you right now. If there is anything that you could say to Marcy right now, what would it be?
Well, Marcy, believe it or not, without ever really formally meeting me, Marcy, in just kind of behind the scenes watching, what I was doing to try to help promote not only, Hope for Cancer, but I really, the promotion comes for Hope for Cancer because we're all here promoting God and just being led by our faith in our journeys, and just the importance of that. And Marcy saw something in me out of anyone else I've been in contact with at Hope for Cancer. She personally chose me. And not only does that mean everything to me as a person personally and spiritually, but it means so much because of how much respect I have for her. And when you have not only somebody that you totally look up to, and I'm secretly stalking her as well on social media and everywhere I can, because I really, really look up to her. And when you have all of a sudden that person choose you, I can't tell you how great it felt, and how much I appreciated it. So she's my
That's
soul
beautiful.
sister. She's a soul sister for sure. We are
Beautiful.
definitely spiritually aligned, and it divinely met for sure.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Marcy, hopefully you were able to receive those beautiful, loving, kind words in a heart space, and accept them. Because I know the space you're speaking from right now. I myself experience it quite often with people these days. It wasn't always that way.
Yeah.
I would like to invite you, Carrie, to take us back in time. You were diagnosed with breast cancer, not once, but twice.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like you to take us back to the first time you were diagnosed, and maybe spend a little bit of time just sharing about what that was like, and why you think you ended up with that diagnosis in the first place.
Sure. So the gist of it is, in 2009, I was still currently married. I was in, at that point, a 14-year marriage. And things, when you're married, you marry young, you go through long-term relationships at a young age, and you haven't been taught a lot about relationships. Sometimes problems show up in ways that you're just not really aware and noticing. And so the marriage was suffering. I didn't realize to what extent it was suffering. And in an attempt to kind of bring life to the marriage, I actually got breast implants. And it was about 4 months after those implants were placed that I felt a lump in my left breast. And I went back to the doctor who ordered an ultrasound and a mammogram. And a mammogram was negative. Ultrasound, they found the lump. You could physically feel it over the skin. And they said it was an inflamed lymph node. So year after year, 4 years goes by. I go in, they're measuring it over the skin. They're telling me it's not changing. They're telling me, there's nothing to do about it. See you next year. And finally, 4 years later, I'm like, I feel like it's growing. It bothers me. You can see it through my clothing. I'm going to get a second opinion finally. And I did. I went to a personal, I was living in a small town at the area, knew a lot of the physicians. I went to a friend physician, and he did a repeat ultrasound, and it had doubled in size in that 4 years. So immediately sent me for biopsy, and sure enough, 2013 was when I had biopsy in May of 2013 to find out that it was actually, in fact, breast cancer. Now, that's the physical side of the symptoms. But as mentioned, 4 years prior, you know, things weren't going real well in the marriage. And about 2 years prior to actual diagnosis, there were a multitude of sudden deaths and tragedies in my family and his family that were just one right after the other. And neither of us had been through any of that. And I mean, we're talking a stepbrother that was in a car accident at 18 and killed. And my niece at 16 went to sleep, did not wake up. His grandfather committed suicide in the bathtub by shooting himself. And I mean, like, and then his grandmother, you know, had to help her through the whole dying process after that happened. And, you know, it's just this 2 years of all this very, very, very heavy emotional stuff hitting a broken marriage. And so, as you can imagine, the support we were giving each other was not sufficient. It really, instead of bringing us together, drove us more apart. And I specifically remember sitting at dinner and crying one time with him and just telling him I didn't understand what was happening with you know, all the death around us, and I wasn't handling it well. And just, I remember he would just brush me aside and, hey, I'm not saying I was good in the marriage either. I mean, we just were not supporting each other. And in the meantime, I was going to work. I'd been working with a boss for about 4 years. You know, at this time, I had been working with him for about 4 years, and this boss was helping promote me and helping encourage me, and he became a very good friend, kind of like a best friend. And you know, so anyway, I wound up turning to him emotionally, and he was pursuing me prior to that, and I was very much resisting. But anyway, we wound up having an affair. So this was in 2012, and the divorce happened by the end of 2012. Actually January 2013, I think it was official. And by May 2013 is when I had the official diagnosis. So, you know,
I'd like to ask you just to take a moment here, just to take a nice deep breath. And I want to just honor you and thank you for having the courage to step into the studio today and share your brutally honest story, because you see, it takes courage to do what you just did, to say what you just shared. And what you have learned and what I have learned is that we're only as sick as our secrets. And freedom comes from within when we release, let go of our past wreckage.
yeah,
The longer we hold on to it, the longer we stay in it.
yeah.
If we want total freedom to release the disease that's within, we have to have the courage to speak all of our truth.
Yeah. And I want to just tag onto that really quick, because this is this was 2013. Between 2013 and 2018, when the cancer returned, which we're going to get to, I thought I forgave myself. I did soul searching and praying, and I was beating myself up, and I was guilty, and I wasn't dating, and I was never going to have a marriage. I mean, I beat myself up. But I got to a point where I said, I have to start forgiving myself. I wrote letters to my ex. I wrote letters to his new wife. I talked with my kids and my family. Like, I did everything that I thought was necessary to forgive myself. I wasn't forgiving myself. I did all these steps, but what I wasn't doing is I wasn't letting that be an okay part of my past. It was still a gray cloud. It was still following me. It was still, every time I had to tell someone this terrible thing, I wasn't letting it transform me into who I wanted to be the way it was intended to. And
where was the shift, and how did you do that?
Okay.
What was the game changer?
So, the divorce happened. As far as the cancer goes, they removed the tumor, did a lumpectomy, and asked me to do radiation. They decided I did not need chemotherapy because they test the tumors, and the tumor came back with what they call it an oncotype. The oncotype is a way that they kind of guesstimate the likelihood of it reoccurring or metastasizing. But the only way the oncotype matters for prognosis is if you take tamoxifen for 10 years. So that's a suppressing drug that puts you into menopause. So oncotype came back low enough, only radiation. Radiation went fine, other than I had to go through another breast surgery because I got a capsular contracture from the radiation in my breast implant. But I did a reconstructive surgery, went fine. Trialed the tamoxifen, could not tolerate the tamoxifen. And let me just throw out there, with what I'm hearing and learning today about tamoxifen, and even a very incredible radio podcast I listened to last night, I'm really finding the small blessings in why, why my path has went the way it's went. I don't think I was meant to take tamoxifen. So I'm glad I didn't. However, that oncotype was only, good knowing I would be on that suppression, and I didn't do the suppression. And so I would go back year after year to the physician. He would do a mammogram. Mammograms never showed a thing on me anyway. I don't know why we're even doing those. But ultrasounds, I did believe in the ultrasounds. And I was clean. My breasts remained clean. My breasts are still clean today. But what happened was last year, in September, I work in a radiology department that does scanning. They have a MRI machine, and I, from time to time, if I drop them a hint, they will allow me to get on and kind of look at things. And especially with my history, I said, my belly's been bloating a lot. I haven't been feeling real good in the belly. Can we just look at my belly? They put me on and scanned the belly. And a good friend radiologist walked in the room and said, no, let's do her lungs. Scan up. And sure enough, there was a spot on MRI. You can't see it because lungs move, but a very small spot on MRI in my lung. So not really suspicious, but because of my history, took the report to my oncologist. Oncologist said, let's get a PET scan. I said, fine, but I'm going to go hike Machu Picchu in Peru first. And I did. I had the plan. I went to Peru. I was hiking at 15,000 feet. No symptoms. Came home, was going to go to my PET scan, like, there's nothing on that PET scan. Look what I just did. And came off the PET scan, and the radiologist, who didn't even know me, asked to see me immediately. And when I walked in, he was crying and he was fearful, and he began to pray with me. And the scan on his screen was probably the scariest thing I could have ever imagined, because it showed, we didn't know yet, we had a biopsy, but we showed uptake, which generally means cancer, all through my sternum, all through my right lung, my right pleural area, my left subclavian lymph nodes, possibly in my liver, possibly in my back, my spine. Wow. It was so much in that right lung. It took up the whole field. And it was weird. It was just everywhere, like fingerlings. And I'm like, how am I not coughing? How am I not feeling this? I'm running on a treadmill. I'm into fitness. I go to the gym 3 to 4 days a week and run 3 miles on a treadmill. I hike Camelback. I just hiked Machu Picchu. It doesn't make sense. But, that's cancer. That's why we don't, you can say, go ahead and say, hey, I'm healthy, I'm hiking, and I'm eating well. you can't trust your eating well. You have to get the information that Hope for Cancer offers. There is so much information we are so unaware of for our health that we think we're doing things right and we're just not.
I just want to reiterate, I want to just like to reiterate to those that are tuned in and are with us right now on live or replay, you are a nurse. You have been a nurse for years. You're not just you're not just a woman that just shows up at the hospital and jumps into a test. You are surrounded by doctors, nurses. You're in the medical field, traditional Western medicine, that is.
15 years, yeah.
And even on the first go round, when you first had awareness that you had a lump in your breast, even with all your expertise, even with all of your knowledge, it took you years to go for a second opinion.
It did.
And what that is about, I believe, is that a lot of times we put blind faith into a doctor.
Oh,
one
my
doctor.
God. Yeah. It's true. I mean, I really put it in the ultrasound. I will say this. This is what I will say about that. And I'm a believer in this. That same doctor, because like I mentioned, I was a nurse in a small community. That same doctor, when I got a repeat ultrasound and it was positive, felt so terrible. He went back and he pulled up the previous images and he compared them and he brought me in to show me. And he said, Carrie, I swear to you, then it was just an inflamed lymph node. And you know what? I believe that. I believe that. I believe at that point, I hadn't been through all the trauma. At that point, it had just kind of shown up and it could have been a surgical inflammation at the time.
Okay.
But whatever it was,
so let's come.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I'm with you.
So,
thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, but no, I totally hear what you're saying. I say this all the time. I work around doctors and nurses all the time. Just because somebody's a doctor or a nurse doesn't mean they don't have a whole history behind them, a whole background, belief system, upbringing. People are people. You cannot put your trust in one person as a doctor as if they are your almighty doctor. They're not. So they only know what they have learned and been trained. And
I'm going to ask you a quick silly question. It seems silly to me, but at the same time, I feel the need to go there. You mentioned that you were working in a radiology department, and it was then that you were then diagnosed with cancer that had spread throughout. Is it possible that you had exposure working in that environment that triggered the metastasized cancer throughout your body?
Okay, so this is my perfect storm of things that could or could not have contributed, but all very well or likely. Emotional, spiritual distress. Drinking alcohol daily. I was drinking a bottle of wine a night. That was my boyfriend for 7 years after divorce. The eating was healthy, but I did not have the correct information about the importance of true organic and reading the label reading that I needed. Like I would grab the whole wheat crackers and not read the label and not realize, the chemicals and the, things that are in there. So definitely not the right healthy diet. And then the radiation, I've been around the radiation for 12 years. I'm still around it. So I'm working. Are you
able to take any precautions in that environment that's different?
We wear dosimeter different than before. No. But I'm seeking to get out of the department. Definitely. It's kind of like when the reoccurrence happened this time, it's been about a year now. I just have had one thing after another go on. Honestly, to tell you the truth, the reoccurrence threw me into one of those patterns of depression that I'm sure you know of after trauma, where people, kind of do this. And I was waking up every night at 2 a.m. in a complete panic attack, which I've never had before. And so it took me about 3 weeks to stabilize with all of that. But it's just been one thing after another, but I'm ready now. I'm going to get away from the radiation at this point. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now you're diagnosed second time around. You find out that you're riddled with cancer.
Yeah.
What happens next?
So all I can tell you, I go through that 3 weeks. I mean, I was back and forth with the doctor. We were even trying blood pressure medications to calm me down. I can't even describe it. Just that alone, I almost didn't care about the cancer anymore because I just wanted my emotions that misery to go away, that dark hole. But once that went away, it happened because I finally got in to see the Mayo Clinic. And I got in to see the Mayo Clinic about a month after my diagnosis because they didn't have me as their patient yet. And that's how long it took to get started. And I got over there and I saw that doctor. And the minute I saw him, I knew I was with a special doctor there too. And he literally looked at me and said, "This is not your end. This is not your demise. We're not even going to do chemo on you. We're going to start out with some medications that have been shown to be pretty effective for the type of cancer you have." Quick point and note for anybody who understands breast cancer, I went from HER2 negative, which is an expressive protein on breast cancer, to HER2 positive. Once upon a time, HER2 positive was a death sentence. Today, as of the last 5 to 10 years, HER2 positive has the most answers, honestly, in breast cancer to try. They've come up with a lot of targeted therapies for that protein.
Okay.
So that was great news. That started me on a positive path. From there, I just had encounter after encounter at a smoothie store, on a bench at work, with my pastor, encounter after encounter of people repeatedly saying, "Look at the diet, look at an alkaline diet, look at a plant-based diet, look at CBD oil, look at, have you ever looked into the alternative therapies? And I'm telling you, everywhere I went, it was being thrown in my path. And I know to listen to that. I know that's God talking to me. I had a night in the bathtub here where I had some spiritual affirmations playing of God's promises that I can just tell you it was a turning point. I saw God reach down. He snatched me up. He said, "I am taking you out of the valley you have been in for 7 years. This is where I take you out, and I'm showing you the purpose." I'm telling you, it was clear as day to me that night in the bathtub that a switch happened. I gave it completely to God, and everything since has lined up. Everything has lined up, including me going to Hope for Cancer. I had a company here in town, out of the blue, a friend doing a massage, told the person she was massaging about me, didn't really know much. He invites me to dinner, happens to be with a Fortune 500 company. He funded my trip to go to Hope for Cancer. It just came out of the blue. I didn't even try, so I just had no doubt this was my path.
Some people refer to that as God's angels.
It's absolutely, but let me just include in that I too was seeking God. Every second and every moment of every day, I was seeking God. And I can't tell you how closely I felt I was walking with God. And, it matters. He wants to hear our voice crying out. He wants that. And, it's just been the most amazing year since. So, diagnosed in 1st of October, started at Mayo Clinic in October of 2018, had maybe 1 or 2 of the treatments through them, IV infusion drugs through them, and committed to Hope for Cancer in November. Went to Hope for Cancer for the month of November. My daughter came to visit me as soon as I got home from Hope for Cancer because she lives in Sweden, and we really felt like we didn't have much time. And she came for the whole month of December. And it just so happened when I came home from Hope for Cancer that my first repeat PET scan was December 14th. My daughter was here, thank goodness. And that PET scan was completely 100% clean.
Wow.
Clean. I've had 3 scans since. It's been a year. I'm 100% clean.
What do you think? Do you have any sense of what the biggest,
I have a
let's say,
hierarchy. I have
catalyst?
a hierarchy of things of importance. For me and what's laid on my heart. And what I always do when I am coaching or talking to other women, I obviously get a lot of women who want to know, what did you do? Blah, blah, blah. My biggest thing that I just tell, I can't express it enough, is you have to be in contact with God and you have to let him lead you, because every cancer is different. Just like our DNA is different and every path is different. Sure, a lot of the same things work for the same cancers, but there's so many ways and combinations to go about things. And, there's so many diets and there's too many things to follow them all. So first and foremost, you have to be following your intuition, your God-given intuition, and be in prayer with him. But
where do you find that? Where do you find, where does intuition come from? What part of your body? Where does it come from?
You would probably, I don't know. I shouldn't assume this, but is it called your third eye? Third eye?
It's not a trick question.
But
It's not.
It's just,
Okay.
it's somewhere between your gut and your heart.
Right. Thank you.
Yes.
Right. Beautiful.
Yes.
It just comes from within. It doesn't come from thinking.
Right.
Our best solutions never will come from our thoughts.
No.
We have
And
to
in
quiet.
fact, I often ruin a lot of opportunities by doing that, by thinking my own thoughts.
Right. We block the gift from coming from within.
Right.
Because we're so obsessed in the thought, and what brings us there is fear. So when we slow down our thoughts enough to step out of fear and step into faith that is already within all of us,
Yes.
therein lies our answer. It always comes, faith over fear.
Yes. Yep. And the thing is that intuition too, let me just throw out there, isn't going to be somebody that's in your ear all day long telling you what to do. Oh, that must be God talking to me. There's a difference. I mean, when it's a God-given path, it's coming at you kind of from all over. And you really, there's a knowing in it. But
Yes.
but you first and foremost have to be seeking it.
Beautiful.
But my hierarchy is there. My second item on my hierarchy of importance is diet, for sure, 100% diet.
Let's talk about that a little bit. What did you change in your intake, in your nutrition?
My first change was to go to an alkaline diet, but what I've come to realize with the alkaline diet that is so similar to what Hope for Cancer teaches you is there's this like general, the reason an alkaline diet is so in favor. Look, cancer is acidic. The alkaline diet, the idea behind it is that you're creating a more alkaline environment. And in doing so, you slow the cancer growth or even cause apoptosis, which is where it kind of self-destructs, because it's not, it won't live, it won't be healthy, it won't thrive in an alkaline environment. There's a lot of controversy around that about whether the alkaline waters and things like that people drink truly get absorbed and change blood alkaline levels. I'm not into having an answer for anyone on that particular science. I do know that if you're eating primarily a plant-based diet, you're eating an alkaline diet. It's very simple.
So was red meat out for you in that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So keto, paleo, out.
I try to call it kind of a plant-based paleo diabetic diet.
Okay.
Because
it's a hybrid.
Clearly with cancer, sugar is out. And let me just, say that is particular sugars. Dr. Tony's an expert on that, and he's learning a lot and teaching us a lot about the right shifting and left shifting molecules and sugars. Natural sugars, we're learning, aren't really going to harm us. You know, if you get your local, nothing added, organic honey, and maple syrups, and then you have your stevia and things like that. Anything that is a white, refined, granular sugar you don't want to have. So it's, you know, it's sugar, we'll call it sugar-free, low carb. Carbs only come in the form of permitted carbs, which are your grains, which are not wheat, because wheat is not actually a natural source of a grain for humans. And either, you know, the corn is okay, but not in the amounts that we flood every bit of our food with. So, you know, you got your quinoas and your more whole natural grains that we, in the paleo times, you know, probably were eating. No dairy and no meat. I do personally eat chicken and fish that is or, you know, fresh caught or farm raised. That's my preference. A lot of cancer patients from Hope for Cancer don't. And when it comes to the dairy, the only safe dairy is if you can get it organic and in some of the higher European countries. And most of the dairy that we have or have a access to here, it's just really, you should just avoid it.
And if you're going to go chicken, I presume it's no antibiotics,
right?
Organic, grass-fed.
Right.
Okay.
And honestly, you know, for me and my personal body, I don't need a lot of meat in my diet. So I just say I eat it, but I do primarily eat a plant-based diet. I'm a single, I'm alone, I live alone. I actually utilize one of the delivery companies that does a great job in sending me plant-based organic meals. So that's what I primarily eat.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So that's my
tell me about your water real quick. Do you drink water from the faucet?
No. And I immediately switched to alkaline water with the cancer diagnosis, stuck with that. But then recently with my 8 days visit, did a lot of training with Oscar, who is an incredible nutritionist down at Hope for Cancer, just a wealth of knowledge. And he actually suggested not doing the alkaline water 24 hours a day like that, it's really not good for the gut microbiome. And so he says, you know, do the alkaline, maybe I think he was saying before a meal. But anyway, I've switched back over. I still get it bottled, but I've switched back over to the reverse osmosis.
What brand do you buy for water? If you buy
I go to a water store.
Okay.
And fill containers.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Beautiful.
So, and I use it for all of my cooking and drinking. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. Likewise. Let's chat a little bit about your hierarchy you talked about.
Hierarchy. So next, besides the diet, I would probably say it's the detoxing for sure. So the enemas, I still do the coffee enemas I do them about once a week now. And fasting. I feel like fasting and the enemas, those two things are super important for detoxing. Fasting, I think we all know there's a ton of research coming about, but what I love, Dr. Tony has kind of led me on this path. His book really explains it in the very the first part of the book, the pre-forward, where, you know, if we really start to look at everything we're doing as biblically based, fasting is very biblical, you know, and so are the seeds of the earth. And so we're eating things in the way God's given them on this earth for us to eat them before we start adding and changing. So fasting, to me, I think there's a ton of evidence coming out, but I mean, it's spiritual for me. but I also think it has huge health benefits. So I try to do
What does
that.
your fasting look like?
I,
What type of fasting do you prefer?
I don't do the daily, although I've just recently bought, it's right under you here. It's called The Complete Guide to Fasting. I'm very heavily considering switching over to the daily fasting. What I've been doing, I kind of find there's, in my research and what I've learned, I feel there's benefits to both the daily, where you only eat, say, from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Yeah, the intermittent. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like there's good benefits for that, but I think that you can't tap into some of the real extreme detoxing benefits unless you do like a 24, 36-hour fast. So those are what I've primarily done. I've been doing them around once a month.
So either 24 or 36 hour.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Beautiful. Very nice.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting because I've never thought I could have done it, would have been able to do it. But once you do it, I find that about 6 hours into it, your energy level is amazing. And you just start to feel, maybe you're proud of yourself too. I mean, that's part of it, but you just start to feel just so light and yeah. So
I just wrapped up last month. I did a 5-day fast. That was a suggestion by Dr. Tony. Prior to that, I had done one other fast in my life. I completed 19 days last September. Actually a year ago, right now, I was in the middle of a 19, almost just shy of 3-week water fast.
yeah.
And that was an incredible experience for me. And for those watching me go through it as well. It was quite remarkable.
Yeah, I bet.
A lot of healing took place.
Yep. Yeah. So, and then probably the next thing, as far as the supplements, I mean, that's where we're gonna start to get into more of the supplements and what I think is important with those. I do think the heat therapies like saunas are extremely important. So any chance you get to be in a sauna, even if you don't have one, I find that to be important. Exercise is important. All the sweating, anything that kind of sweats things out, gets the blood moving. Oxygenation, because cancer is an anaerobic disease, so it does not like oxygen. So any way you can get more oxygen going. But I find that the CBD and THC are probably the most important with the supplements. I cannot tell you, not only in my research, the research that's coming out, local companies here in Scottsdale, an incredible master's prepared nurse that I've been listening to, who is an ex-oncology nurse, ICU ex-oncology nurse, who just allowing her patients to make their own choices and using that, have recorded and watched what happens. I just think it's huge. It's huge for fighting cancer and a lot of other diseases. I really do. And it's a craze. Don't get me wrong. I see the warning signs of it being a craze and on every corner. And there's probably a lot of, products out there that aren't really natural and whole and, but when you have the correct product and you really look at the true research besides the money-making market of it, I do have a strong belief we're onto something with that. It's coming out. It's on the verge of exploding for us.
Beautiful. Yeah, I know a number of patients that have utilized and continue to utilize CBD and THC, not only for cancer. I had a guest come on a show, Emma, I think it was Emma Romano, maybe, from Australia. She self-healed MS utilizing CBD and THC. 6 months she died. That was the only protocol that she did, and MS gone. She's clean.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're finally, Jay, having the actual science come out, like where we know we have the cannabinoid receptors, within our body. We don't have receptors in our cells for nothing. It's for a reason. A lot of the medications, I was just listening to this podcast about this last night. It was so interesting. A lot of the medications that we have on the market today actually are used to target those receptors, but they target them in a different way than the actual THC and cannabis does. So
is that
really,
the secret plant that you're watching? Was that the secret plant? Is it the secret plant?
No.
Okay, that you've been watching?
It was called, it was just her name is Nurse Kristen, and she has a following on Facebook and things, but she was doing an interview and it was on YouTube.
Speaking of podcasts, do you follow Chris? Do you follow Chris Wark? Chris Beat Cancer. Are you familiar with Chris Beat Cancer?
I do. Okay. I'm very familiar. In fact, the first interview, and I watched at all ever on alternative medicine in any way with cancer, was an interview he did with Shannon Knight, and she had exactly the same cancer and prognosis as I did, and her story is what really sparked me to start looking into everything. Yeah. So yeah, definitely.
We watch him. We pay close attention to him and his work. We've got his book, and very much aligned. I really enjoy listening to his podcasts, his interviews. He actually interviewed someone just yesterday, Vani. She's called the Food Babe. I don't know if you're familiar with her or not, but that was an excellent interview. She's an advocate going after all the big food companies that are putting poison in the food that we eat every day. This is the only country, a lot of times they only put it in our food, but they take it out of the ingredients when it goes overseas. And so she's been by herself advocating, going viral and implementing change in companies like Kraft, Starbucks, Chipotle. Just to name those three right there. Amazing work that Vani is doing today. Right.
Yeah, so important. So anyway, these cannabinoid receptors, I mean, what I was learning yesterday is we have to be very careful. We actually with the research should be able to replace medications like blood thinners and things with these with cannabis, because you can't really take them together. If you take them together, you're putting yourself in danger because they act the same way on the cells. So, but unfortunately, the chemicals are not the answer. You really want to be sticking with the natural form of seed from the earth that God has given us, that is intended to help us. So, yeah. So anyway,
I'm in favor. I'm with you.
Yeah. And then, I'll stop there with my hierarchy. There's I could go on and on and on with a whole list of supplements. I think vitamin D is super important, B12 super important. There's a lot of evidence that D is a huge player with cancer. There's just a ton of information out there.
You mentioned earlier in our conversation, you touched on the emotional stressors that you were living in. But even when you detached from, let's say, the painful relationships that you were involved in, the environment, but you still had the inner bondage, the guilt and the shame, and all those other negative, toxic emotions that you were holding on to.
Right.
What was the process that you were able to utilize for yourself to help you release and do the inner work to come to self-compassion, self-forgiveness?
Right. So Add Hope for Cancer, that is one of their primary focuses while you're there. When I went to Hope for Cancer, I was in such a fragile state because I literally felt like I had just been through trauma. I was there alone. I've been alone for 7 years. I've been very lonely. I went from having a family to living alone for my first time ever. And when I got down to Hope for Cancer and they tried to start working with me emotionally, honestly, it was too hard. I started brain dumping my past, which is what they kind of do. They kind of help you figure out, what's gone on in your past that kind of aligns, because you got to face that before you can release it. And it was too much for me to see all at once with dealing with the cancer. You know, I really didn't take advantage of it. Well, this, when they invited me to go for 8 days TV show, I kind of figured this is what I'm going to go work on. I'm taking advantage of it. I'm finally going to try to work on a lot of this in a real way. And, but when I got there, I had no idea how much so once again, God's continuing today to align me with not only opportunities, but they're purposeful encounters and opportunities to heal me. And regardless of what happens with that TV show, I mean, I went to help spread the word, tell other people, be giving. Once again, I got there. Guess what? I got more out of it because I, if anybody tunes into the show, they'll see it. I'll probably be one of the stars of the show. I mean, I am one of the stars of the show, but there'll probably be a lot of footage, but because I had no idea what all was coming out. I had not anticipated it, but I did a lot of work there. And what they were working on me with was becoming authentic. That word, when you let that sink in, that word means everything in releasing past.
Tell me more.
Becoming authentically you means that there is nothing hiding. There is nothing that you are beating yourself up over, because you are releasing it as part of you that has created you into the beautiful, positive human being you are. So you don't, when you become authentically you, it's reacting to things in a way that honors yourself. It's honoring yourself on a day-to-day basis. And it's complete acceptance of who you are, what you've been through, what your past is, and understanding how that's made you beautiful.
Beautiful. Beautiful. You nailed it.
Yes.
Yes.
Without those things that we carry and we hide and we worry about and our stigmas, without those things happening to us, we can't become the beautiful people we are. It's all a purpose, really. And that's what I see. That's what
Okay. Beautiful.
I couldn't have become who I am. I couldn't be where I am and free and happy and a walking miracle, had I not needed to reach out to my God in really desperate times.
If I may take a moment here to paraphrase what I believe I just heard you say in my own words, you had an opportunity to really, maybe for the first time in your life, understand that it no longer matters what other people outside of yourself think of you. It no longer matters how they judge you. It no longer matters even what they may say to you. What truly matters is how you feel about yourself. What truly matters is what you say to yourself. What truly matters is coming home. And so, Carrie, Crary, I'd like to say, welcome home.
Thank you.
Welcome home, young lady.
Yeah. I mean, and I know this. I know all that matters is that my God approves of me. That God, and He is love. I mean, yeah. That's
yes.
all that.
How does it feel to receive those words right now? Welcome home.
Like, I feel the depth of the meaning of that. It's kind of like this, I kind of felt like there was a lightness around you, like a warmth, and just once again, just knowing that this is, I'm doing and I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be,
Beautiful.
I'm who I'm supposed to be. So.
Right. It's connecting it's basically the coming home process is stepping out of the ego space where we spend most of our life chasing the dream, the beliefs, the dream that has been weaved by the belief system that we inherited as a gift from our ancestors, and stepping out of the ego space and reconnecting at the soul level, coming home back at the heart space, back to your inner child space, and basically coming back to your wholeness, to yourself, to your
Right.
authentic self.
Right.
And when we have that experience, there are, as you said, there's very few words to describe what it feels like, but it is just an incredible experience that we should all have the gift and blessing to go through. But in
Right.
order to get there, we have to show up. We can't pray our way there.
Right.
We have to take some action steps. We have to take some massive action. If we want to experience coming home, we have to be willing to surrender and do some of our own work. We just can't pray our way there.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
You showed up. You showed up ready to do the work in Cancun over those 8 days.
Yeah. I mean, I did. I definitely did. Yeah. I definitely went there with that exact outlook. Definitely. And just knowing, you know, it's tough. I mean, we see reality TV. Oops, I'm so sorry. We see reality TV and, you know, we see what people are being real about on reality TV. And, you know, it just looks like so much silly drama to us. Well, you know, the thing is though, that this was completely different. And the realness that came out of this and the authenticity of people that came out of this and the healing and the messages, you know, it was a once in a lifetime experience for all of us. I can tell you that. Even Marcy, I mean, Marcy was there as a house host and she's come out of it completely different person. So my only prayer, my only hope is that, you know, viewers will somehow take away from it as well.
How do you know that Marcy was impacted? Was it just through the words she spoke, or did you actually see or feel a shift in her being?
That house was it wasn't just being told. That house was such an emotionally and spiritually driven 8 days. The events that went on, they had organized, you know, breathing techniques and yoga and things that we were doing that we're bringing, you know, purposely bringing out a lot of healing that if you were there, you couldn't escape it, whether you were meant to or not. Even the camera people, I mean, they didn't escape it either.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Out of respect for your time, you're not going to believe it, Carrie, but we are just at the hour. I'd like to invite you to perhaps share some thoughts and reflection from your experience of doing this show with me today, having a conversation, as well as perhaps if there's anything that you would like to share with someone, maybe a woman, a daughter, a mom, a sister, a sibling that has received news that either they have got breast cancer or a loved one has breast cancer today. If you could share maybe some closing thoughts that may impact their life.
Yeah. You know, I think that probably my most important message I would give them, and it might be kind of a unique message, but it's so important to me, is that if you can approach these worst moments, these traumatic moments, these scariest moments of your life, if you can approach them and do all of your research and follow your path in following love and not fear, it makes a world of difference in where your path goes and what happens. in that path, what's presented to you, and where you're guided. I mean, you can go and study books and learn what you need about Western medicine. You can learn cognitively what you need about alternative medicine. You can make a bunch of mental decisions on what you're going to do or not do, or what makes sense and what studies are done. But you're not going to understand the depth of healing that you need to understand if you're not following a loving healing journey. You know, your journey has to be through you have to set up you have to have a purpose, and you have to follow that purpose, and you have to be not only receiving but giving love through the whole process and following your heart. I mean, you just do. You cannot listen to a doctor, listen to what other people will tell you, and go into a depressing, fearful mode. Western medicine does a very good job of instilling a lot of fear in people. And we all know people who've died of cancer. We all do. But not everyone has understood that they need to look at other options and follow, you know, a God-given path in treating this.
What would you say is your greatest lesson that you've learned about yourself through this process?
You know, everyone kept saying, you're a nurse, you're a mom, you're a caregiver. So actually the left side of breast cancer is known for people like me who are constantly giving of themselves and not taking care of them and not taking care of themselves. And everyone kept telling me that. And I thought, you know, that's not true. I go get a pedicure and I exercise and I eat right. And I'm constantly taking care of myself. I was taking care of myself in a physical sense and making time for myself to go do the things I found were important for myself. But I wasn't taking care of myself in an emotional, spiritual way when dealing with others. And what I've always done is been very hard and beat up myself for having, you know, I'm a strong presence. I'm a pretty verbal, you know, a woman. I know I carry a little bit of a strong presence, and I was beating myself up for that. And I was constantly putting myself down for my strengths, honestly. And I was constantly trying to keep myself contained and not, you know, even though I was always coming from a great place, nobody understood it. So I should just never be in conflicts and never have problems and, you know, just be a yes, like pleasing to everyone. And, you know, what I've learned through this is I have to trust in my emotions. And I have to trust in who I am and who I've become and know that my heart is good. And if something's bothering me, I can speak up. I can take care of myself first. You know, I don't have to let other people walk on me in order to be the peaceful one and you know, and have a peaceful life. That's not the way it has to work. So I think I've learned that. I've learned that my authentic self is okay. And it's not perfect. And I'm going to have confrontation, and it's okay.
I love that. That's so beautiful, Carrie. The greatest gift we get each time we're given one more breath is the gift of learning, the gift of growth. And unfortunately, or fortunately, sometimes we have to have a very strong awakening to understand that, you know, when we're celebrating, we're not growing. We grow the most when we're living in discomfort, when we're in distress, when we're in pain, emotional, mental, physical, and sometimes spiritual.
Yeah. Yes.
But through that experience, if we don't miss the signpost, as my spiritual mentor has taught me, we get the gift of growth. And then we have the opportunity to give it away. We get to share it with others in a beautiful, loving, kind way.
Right. Right. Yes.
Last question for you. Do you have a sense of what your future looks like?
I don't, because I feel like if I did, that's me planning. And I feel like if there's one thing that has happened in this last year is if I give it to God, he is really doing a good job with it, not me. So
Beautiful.
I'm open
Wow.
to opportunities. I have things that are laid on my heart. I do believe, I just read it in my daily devotional today. God gives us our passions of our hearts for a reason. It is our purpose. So we should, pay attention to that and follow that and, take steps forward in that direction. I am very passionate about coaching and teaching in this field now. I obviously, as a nurse, being my background, it's very hard for me to go to work day after day and not start to see the gaps and the problems and where we really need to bring these two sides of medicine together. I believe in Western medicine too. There's a lot of wonderful, wonderful things that go on with Western medicine, but I just see this huge gap, should not be one side or the other. And I see that there's a lot of kind of brainwashing teaching going on in Western medicine, and because we're formed into our roles. So my passion is now to kind of be like, look, I am a Western medicine trained nurse, but we have to bring this gap. We have to bridge this gap, and we have to figure out that there is more to this than just chemicals and drugs. And it's my calling and my platform. I'm so passionate about it.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
What I love about your story is there's so many parts to it. You touched on the challenges at home in the marriage. You touched on a lot of loss that you and your family, your husband and you experienced. You touched on infidelities. You touched on the second go around. You touched on missing or cancer taking 4 years until you got a second opinion. There's so many moving parts of your story. But what I love about your story is that you actually did a hybrid. You did the Western medicine treatment, but you also brought in the alternative holistic treatment out of Hope for Cancer. And that's a great alternative. That's a great option for people. It doesn't
this
have
is
to be one
my
way or the
vision.
other.
Exactly. My vision is this. Will I ever in my life say chemotherapy is off the table? No. I have a great friend that I went to Hope for Cancer with, who actually lives in Hawaii, breast cancer. She did alternative care only. She was so, we got the Western and the alternate, and a lot of times people are one way or the other and no in between. She was so devout to the alternative therapies. And you know what? It probably kept her living as long as she's lived. I mean, she's been dealing with it for years now, and it's probably kept her, given her the longevity that she's had. But she got to a point with the cancer that she was gonna not make it. And I mean, she got really sick, and she finally at that point knew her immune system was not going to get built up enough to fight this anymore. And so she allowed them to start chemo. And you know what? It's working.
Beautiful.
She's walking again, and she's, feeling better again. And so listen, I am in no way ever going to say nothing is on the table for me. But my view, the way I look at it, is God has given us this great earth and all of the products here on it in a very natural form. And that is where we should start with our healthcare, with our diet, with our daily lives. And if we can prolong ever using, if I never have to use chemotherapy because I am constantly, I do so well with the natural therapies, that's the goal, right? That's the goal. But when I say you bring them together, you start with nature. You start with the nature side, the things that build you, give you the quality of life, give you the fighting chance. Our bodies are built to take care of themselves.
Exactly.
And
Yes,
no science or man is going to ever have 100% grasp on how to make that happen. So, that's my thing. Then you just kind of gradually, if you look at it least to most, then if just straight nature is not working, then you can start looking, try different things and kind of still, but chemotherapy one day down the road is something I just am down to my last leg and have to try it, by all means.
Yeah.
That's where I come
Pay
from.
attention to what you're hearing, not up here, but within here. Listen to your intuition. Pay attention to your body.
Because as Dr. Tony says, you could be in hope for cancer for 3 weeks, go down to the beach, stand on the beach, pray, and God will heal you on the beach. Not one of the therapies did it. That's not, now he doesn't claim that that's what happens to people there, but his point is we don't always know which thing's going to work for each of these disease processes. This might be a God designed thing, so we turn to him. So that we turn to him and let him guide us.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, Carrie, I really enjoyed our conversation. I would like to again thank you for stepping into the studio, having the courage to share your authentic truths, continuing to practice stepping forward and speaking all of your story, not holding back, and through that we are able to continue the healing process for ourselves. And not only that, but give other people the courage to step forward and share their truths, even when it is hurtful and painful to themselves, because through that, we get to heal.
Yes, we do.
We let it go. We can release it.
We do. In a real way. Yeah.
For those of us that have joined us tonight, thank you for joining us on catching us live or on replay. We appreciate you. Without your support, Carrie and I wouldn't have a reason to be here talking other than to each other. So thank you for joining us this evening on Real People, Real Health. Next week, I'm actually going to be on a beach in Mexico. I'm going down to Tijuana next week to do some trial, some experimental treatment of my own, and look forward to sharing with you how that went on my return trip to Scottsdale.
And I'm going to say, when you get to Mexico, welcome home. Because that's a family you're walking into. And I'm so happy for you.
Thank you so much. If you could stay in the studio just for a few moments. Thank you for joining us this evening, all of you in the community. I love you. And just know this, that no matter what's going on in your life, just have the courage to take some time for yourself, do some self-care. Baby steps, big priority is how we begin the healing journey. And with that, have an incredible weekend. And we'll catch you next time on Real People, Real Health. Thank you for joining us.